guys, welcome to another battle report. This time it's with Dread Elves, and I'm playing with two units, two big blocks of Dread Knights. Because I find that in the Dread Elf army book there's a lot of choices that might hit really hard on the charge, but then afterwards in the rounds after they don't really perform as well as I would like them to do. But the Dread Knights might be an exception to this. So they do have resilience 4, they do have a 2+ armor save, and whilst the knights themselves only have 1 attack, they do have strength 4, they do have lightning reflexes with high offensive skill, and the gold ones also have 2 attacks each. So even if someone charges into one of these units, he's gonna likely first get 11 attacks on him with strength 4, and then afterwards gold ones still 10 attacks with strength 4. So in terms of grinding, these guys can actually grind quite well, which is exceptional in the Dread Elf army. And currently I find it quite difficult to build a Dread Elf army that is offensive enough to really go through enemy lines. Mostly because the core is not that impressive, except for the legionnaires if you build them in a knob style. Or the Corsairs, they can also dish out quite a lot of damage. But the other choices, they don't really go through the enemy as efficiently as you would want, in my opinion. Our major problems there are also beating stat fast with Dread Elves. If you face 40 goblins, you don't have a lot of answers to that, which is kind of weird. So otherwise in the army, I wanted to try some Ravencloaks, I wanted to try some Bolt Throwers. I've been quite skeptical of these, just because the Ravencloaks, they are quite cheap, like this, but then again, they're in between this rule of chaff and doing some damage, but it's only 10 shots. You're not gonna do a lot with them, I would say. And if you expand it, then it becomes a really vulnerable unit, especially to magic. So 1 magic missile and you're like 400 point unit is gone. Bolt throwers, yeah, I don't know. So for some other armies, like orcs and goblins and infernal dwarfs, you get these bolt throwers that are like 100 points. These ones are nearly twice the amount of points, but they hit just a little bit better on a 3+ instead of 2+. And you can do the multi-shot, that's true, which is actually in most cases just a little bit better. But on the other hand, yeah, I don't really see the use of these. So you're investing like 600 points for 3 bolt throwers to get some zone control. But then again, they don't really do a lot of damage in one single turn. It's mostly over the entire game that you want to do damage. But I find with Dread Elves, this is kind of weird because for a single tournament, you basically want to go for the big wins. So in a team tournament, I can understand it because then you can just turn the matchup into a matchup where you will take your time and just go for the draw basically and just chip off some points with the bolt throwers over the different turns. In singles, I don't really get it because, well, this doesn't get you closer to a winning game. Then for the opponent, he was playing Undying Dynasties. He's quite new to Undying Dynasties, but we both stared at the book and we were quite amazed with the Necropolis Guard. So Necropolis Guards, they have poison, lethal strike, they get battle focus if you put a guy in, and you have a very easy access to reroll to a hit in the army. And otherwise they're stubborn with a character in them. And I don't know if I'm forgetting anything, but in the end you have a unit. Oh yeah, they have 2 attacks each. So for example, for these paired weapon guys, if you field them 6 wide, you get 12, 18, 19 attacks from the unit with reroll to hit, likely because you have avocation and divination both supplying you with it. So you have reroll to hit, battle focus, poison, lethal strike, strength 4 attacks. That is impressive. That's really impressive, especially for the points that you pay for them. And then, well, if they had like the resilience of a blade of knob, then it would be okay, I would say. But then again, you're still fighting against Resilience 4. They still have an armor save, even though it's only 6+. And they have Stubborn in the unit, and you can re-raise them. So yeah, I think it's a really competitive choice, and it's weird that you don't see them more often. Especially since you can equip the Tomb Harbinger also at least once with the Scourge of Kings, bringing him to 7 attacks, which is just mental. Yeah, otherwise what does the list have? So the list does have a Tomb Harbinger, who is the Hierophant instead of a Death Cult Hierarch, and a Pharaoh with Destiny's Call and Godslayer. I think this is also a really good choice, just because there's a lot of stuff in the game with Aegis. And 430 points is not a lot for this model. Yeah, so those are the lists. I'm gonna show you some army pictures. So these are the Dread Elves that are still being painted now. So I had to make 2 unit fillers for the Cult Knights because I didn't have enough Cult Knights to fill 20. And it's actually a race between 2 different models. So we have a Cult one at a flag at the start line and a horse at a flag at the finish line, because obviously the horse is faster than the Cult one. Yeah, then the other army. So we have also some army pictures. So this army is still really in construction at first stages. So we actually proxied it with Empire. So you get to look at some Empire models. So we are playing Counter Thrust and Breakthrough. I was going to start deploying, so I started with the Medusa just to zone out the deployment of my opponent, basically, just to put him in a tighter corner. And he is then deploying his chariots. So he could have also tried to deploy his archers in front of the Medusa, trying to shoot it down. On the other hand, I want to just deploy as fast as I can, basically, just to get the first turn, just to be able to decrease the distance between our armies. Counter thrust requires you to do 3 drops before you can drop the rest of your army. So I'm just deploying the Medusa and the Corsairs with the Vanguard, because they will be able to deliver the Pegasus hero still somewhere, and then the bolt thrower. So maybe I should have actually waited with the Corsairs until I knew where my opponent's army was going to be until I dropped. So I could have just deployed the bolt throwers, basically, or just some Legionnaires, because I feel like the Legionnaires are not going to participate too much in this game. So I decided to actually go on the other side of the deployment than my opponent is deploying, because I don't want a full frontal battle against his Necropolis guard. So before I was playing this game, I was thinking of putting the Banner of Blood of one of these Cold One Knights, fearing, however, that due to their advanced 7 they might not get too many charges off in the game. However, seeing this, I probably should have put on a Banner of Blood on one of the units, just because if you face something like this, if you don't have the Banner of Blood, you're gonna do like 10 wounds on a Necropolis guard, and Necropolis guard are gonna do just a couple of wounds back to your Cult Knights, like, I don't know, 3 or 4. Still have some characters that can dish out some damage. So likely this just makes the difference between going through the enemy units or not. So just for versatility, probably even it's good to have one running banner, one Banner of Blood, and then the unit with the Banner of Blood gets really scary. But it does have to get the charge, obviously. So the cold run goes into the middle because I was still unsure about on which side my opponent was going to be. And we are playing breakthrough, so I would like to have my Legionnaires available to countercharge or delay his advance. So in this game, the bolt throwers are not going to be that useful because you're playing against Undying Dynasties, so they can heal quite well. And it's a lot of infantry, and bolt throwers are not that good at mowing down infantry. And otherwise, we have the Raven Cloaks. They're just going to try to harass my opponent. Generally, my plan is to just advance on the left, trying to force my opponent into inconvenient choices. And Yeah, I really felt the downside of not having the Banner of Blood in there. So my combat prowess was, in my eyes, not enough to be able to force through my knights through his necropolis card. So my BSB can vanguard up behind the terrain and then put pressure on his lines by just being there. And then if my opponent leaves a gap in his deployment in the back, I can pop in there and start doing some stuff. And yeah, the catapult has a minimum range of 12 inches, so I can just park it next to the catapult and then charge from there. So he's actually in a safe spot with the Vanguard available to him. Then the other pieces of the list, they just advance. The Dread Legionnaires, they do advance a bit offensively, just to try and draw out my opponent a little bit and make him advance less quickly. So I know that if I have to receive a charge of the skeleton chariots on the right with my 15 Dread Legionnaires, I'm gonna not be in a happy place. So I try to zone out them a little bit, because if I charge, then it might still be kind of okay. So I'll do a couple of wounds. He'll do also a couple of wounds to me. So probably in the grind he would win against me, but then again, stuff can happen. And if I have a charge, I have a rank, I have a banner, that's already 3 combat rests. He only has a banner, I believe. And I hit him on 2s, I wound him on 5s. He's gonna hit me on 4s and wound me on 3s, because I have halberds, I believe, with 4 attacks per chariot. So that's actually just way too much. Yeah, I think in the grind he would just grind me down. Also because of the fact that he's gonna retain most of his attacks. Whilst every wound I get, I immediately lose attacks. So I would need some support there. So I think my opponent could also just have pushed through on the flank and just have me let the charge on the chariots. He's not going to crumble down all the way. But then again, it's Undying Dynasties. I really don't know how Undying Dynasties is supposed to play, because here locally we don't have a lot of players playing them. And yeah, I have seen a couple of Sphinxes and stuff, and normally I don't struggle too much with those. But a list like this is also quite different from the rest, obviously. But I think he should have just moved aggressively on the right, because he could have used his 2 Necropolis guard units to the right of the Impossible to block up the advance of the Colton Knights to his lines. Still leave the archers where they are. Use the paired weapon Necropolis guard all the way on the right to advance, and he will grind me out. He'll just kill me. So he can just move up with his chariots, move up with the chariots behind them, and then obliterate my right flank, because there's basically just nothing there. Just a couple of elves that they don't strike hard enough to cope with the rest. Yeah, so then we go into my turn 2. And in my turn 2, yeah, not a lot is gonna happen basically, because, well, in this matchup, I don't feel like I have the combat prowess to grind him down. He is playing quite a passive game, so both of us are not doing a lot really. So yeah, this is the way in which I would approach this game in a tournament setting, I guess, because you want to just retain your points. I just want to try and make my opponent go in for the kill, just to bait them out, to get the counter charges where I want them. So the Corsairs are moving up to draw them out. Legionnaires are moving up to draw them out. I'm just trying to tempt them into a charge, with the likelihood that it's not going to turn out quite that well for him. And in the meanwhile, the bolt throwers have been trying to shoot at this stuff, but it's largely ineffective. I mean, with the gold ones, I'm on the with the bolt thrower on the left. I've been moving twice because the gold ones were in the way. Then we have a bolt thrower all the way on the right. They just try to shoot, but my opponent's getting soft cover, so I only hit on 5s. Or I can shoot down some necropolis guard. Yeah, that's not really tempting because you hit on 4s, you wound on 4s, you do like 1 wound a turn. So this is definitely not the ideal target, but still, the presence of the bolt throwers didn't really feel good. I mean, they're really vulnerable pieces on their own. They can cause panic checks if you advance, if you stay too close to them. And yeah, your opponent likely has some tools to get rid of artillery pieces such as those. So by fielding them, you also give your opponent a chance to use them actually. So for example, the Scorpion is now trying to chase down my bolt thrower on the left, and yeah, I could hope to just shoot it down with 1 volley of my bolt thrower, but it's never gonna happen. I basically now have to use my Raven Cloaks in order to get rid of the Scorpion, if I even manage that, and then yeah, I'm gonna sacrifice probably some other bolt thrower shooting from the bolt thrower all the way in the back on the Scorpion to just try to defend my bolt throwers. It's totally cost inefficient in my eyes. So they do work quite reasonably still against flying monsters, flying characters most notably that rely on armor save. But yeah, I don't think I'll field them ever again. So maybe this is not the perfect army for the bolt throwers or something, but nah, it didn't really feel right. Yeah, so my opponent is just corner shuffling at this moment. Yeah, so if he had broken out of his corner the previous turn, he would have already been on far up on my right flank by now, so I definitely think that he should have done that. So the only danger that he has is if I manage to charge in one of his necropolis guard units with the legionnaires in the flank, the knights in the front, and the altar also either in the flank or the front. That would be a nasty situation. But otherwise, I think he's fine because he's going to be stubborn. He has a couple of ranks. He has a couple of banners and stuff. Yeah, and I don't have sufficient combat rest to bring him down. So maybe actually, if I want to play this list as a really offensive list, I should just put in a gigantic spear block with the banner of the Relentless Company. So that turn 1 I can just march up 15 inches, march up with the knights, put pressure everywhere. That could be interesting. Let's have a big spear block, have Corsairs with Vanguard, have 2 units of the knights, the altar, Medusa for the bound spell. That could work. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, this is gonna be kind of the static picture for the game. So there is still gonna be some stuff that's happening, but yeah, I'm just not gonna attempt. I'm not gonna try to charge into his necropolis guard with my knights, because I feel like it's gonna be a bad ending for me. Because also he has the BSB in there and the Pharaoh. So the BSB has the shield that gives him distracting, and he has parry, so I only hit him on 5+, lightning reflexes 4+. So I'm not gonna be able to kill him in 1 round, that's for sure. So probably my opponent's gonna be able to heal him up. So I won't be able to take this guy down, likely. Whilst at the same time he has the Pharaoh also in there with strength 7, so AP4. He's gonna first strike down either my champion or gonna try to challenge my general, and then yeah, it's gonna go downhill from there for my unit. And in a lot of matchups, you could say that, well, you can just go in with your Dread Knights, you can deal some damage, and then flee away, and then with the next unit of Dread Knights, you mop up the rest. And I might do like, I don't know, 15 wounds to the necropolis guards. That's all fine and well. But then in the magic phase of my opponent, he can. We have a bit of a standoff, so he can just use his magic fully to re-raise his troops. Because I don't have a lot of ways to put pressure on my opponent. Also because of the impossible terrain on the bottom. So it was unfortunate that my opponent was able to choose the table side. Because this does protect him from flank charges. So maybe after all I should have. Well, I could have deployed my army on the right to go for a full frontal charge. So I could charge two different units at the same time. That might have been better. And he would have had a longer threat range with the chariots. But even then, if I only were able to stop his most dangerous spells, I think in this case that would be Spectral Blades with Lethal Strike. If I could stop that one, then I might be able to even handle one of these chariot charges, because he has the impact hit, so he has 43 strength 4, which is going to be like 8 hits, is 4 wounds, is probably a wound. Then I have like 10 attacks back. I hit him on 2s, so I wound him on 3s. If I have the Cauldron on Death Trance, I have reroll of 1s to wound. So that's going to be like 2 chariots gone, more or less. And then, when the 2 chariots are gone, my opponent's not going to do a lot anymore. And then the Cauldrons can finish the job, basically. And if he charges the unit that even contains the wizard, then it's really a done deal for him. And in that scenario, I might even want to just put the BSB inside one of the Cauldron Knights units. The only trouble is then that he can just use the catapult to single out my BSB. Because I have Basalt Infusion and Hero's Heart, I don't have the Midnight Cloak. And I don't have the Midnight Cloak because with the Midnight Cloak you do have a 3+ against range. That's 3+ Aegis against range, then that's amazing. But still in this army, I think that your opponent would still just use his catapult or cannon to shoot at your BSB, if at all possible, because it's a really harassing piece. And if you fail it, then your model's just gone, because you have 3 wounds. The opponent likely has clipped wings, so your model is gone basically. And yeah, the combat damage output gets quite a bit smaller if you don't have Hero's Heart on this guy, because you likely take a lance stand just to keep some armor safe, and then you only have 3 attacks. And I had it quite a lot of times that you just miss one of your hits, or you miss one of your 2 wound rolls. So you only do 2 wounds with these 3 wounds. The opponent likely has some kind of Aegis still, some kind of regen. So in the end, you're talking about 1 wound that you do with multiple wounds D3. So to me, that's Midnight Cloak's not really worth it on a hero, because it also tempts you to make plays that are maybe not ideal. So in this case, I know I have to protect my BSB from the catapult of my opponent. So that is really clear. So I also try to do that. So as you can see, I actually managed to squeeze through with one of my Dread Legionnaires units. This was surprising to the both of us. I know that in the army list I had written that they all have the Academy banner, but I remember now that they all have the banner of speed instead. So they actually have move 6, march 12, and that was nice to play around with. So actually you could also, with the knights, you can play a Yama list. Then you can give a banner of speed to your legionnaires, so you don't have to use a relentless company banner, but you can just go to move 7, march 14. That's interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting. I'll try that once. Because then, yeah, with Yama you can still put in some acolytes instead of the bolt throwers. And still keep the BSB, you can keep the Corsairs. That might be worth a try. So I might want to put in a Cult Priest to retain the Killer Instinct. Because the reroll of once to wound is quite nice if you field a full unit of Legionnaires. Because then you're talking about a unit that hits on most likely 2+, because you have a high offensive skill and you have lightning reflexes, and then you have strength 3 with death trance, so effectively strength 4. If you also have a reroll of 1 to wound, that's good. Because if you go for a full unit, you probably will go for horde, that you just march up to your enemy lines basically. So you have 32 attacks, because you strike on 4 ranks with the spears, 33 attacks if you include the champion. Yeah, 32 because you have the Cult Priest. So that's 32 attacks that hit on a 2+ or a 3+, so that's like 20 hits. So that's the reroll 1s to wound is gonna be rerolling 1 or 2, no, 3 or 4 1s to wound. But it also protects you from the very bad rolls. So it obviously happens that you sometimes have a roll where you expect to hit on a 2+, and then you roll just 7 1s and a 2. So from these rolls, it really protects you well, which is good. Yeah, that might be interesting. So by this time, my Corsairs actually got in combat with the Necropolis Guard. So I believe it was my opponent who charged them now. So I didn't really have a lot of incentive of going in there with my Corsairs, just because I thought that in the end they would get mowed down. Because yeah, these Necropolis Guard, but they don't have any characters by now anymore. Just because all of the characters hopped over to the other unit to really make a Death Star out of it. And my opponent didn't think that he needed them against the Corsairs. So now they only have, they do have the halberds. No, they do have the Hound Weapon Shields, I believe. So they do have 1 attack each and 2 for the front rank, so that's still 15 attacks. They hit me on 4+, they win me on 3+. And I am basically investing my magic into getting the Corsairs a 2+ armor save. So they should do like 1 or 2 wounds each turn in the end. Meanwhile, my Corsairs, they're 7 white, so they get 14 attacks, plus some extra support and champion. I hit them on 2s, I wound them on 5s, and I have a reroll of the 1s to wound. So that would, yeah, hit on 2s, wound on 5s. It's like 4 wounds. I should do 4 wounds each turn, more or less. Yeah, so by now you can see what finally happened. So it turned out to be inevitable that my opponent was going to come up on the flank. But in terms of breakthrough, I'm still doing quite okay. I don't know actually if these skeleton chariots in his list were scoring or not. But well, right now I do have the Corsairs still in his deployment, and the Legionnaires all the way on the bottom, even though they're gonna die. But I do have the 2 Dread Knight units on the left that haven't really acted a lot during this game yet. And yeah, my opponent has the necropolis guard and the chariots on the top right in my deployment zone. So if I can remove one of these two, then I'm basically gonna get the objective, because with the two Dread Knight units, I'm gonna try to prevent any kind of interaction with my opponent, and then I'll just stay in his deployment and get the objective, because he's not gonna be able to move any of his other scoring units all the way to my deployment zone anymore. Yeah, so it's maybe a bit of a more boring battle this time, or at least it doesn't have a lot of swings. But finally, my Pegasus hero is going to do some action. So he flew into this unit of skeleton chariots, and I thought that that was quite a good idea. So I have 5 attacks that hit on 2s, that wound on 3s with a reroll of the 1s. And I have a Pegasus and a BSB, and I have a 2-up armor safe in combat. I have heavy armor, I have Without Infusion, I have Fleet Commander. So that's a 3-up, and the Pegasus gives you also 1, so that's a 2-up, I believe. So my opponent's gonna strike against some armor there. So I was going for just a grind of my opponent's chariot. Meanwhile, the knights, they back up a little bit, so one of the units just ducks into the corner, and the other just moves a little bit back. My wizard goes out of the unit and tries to just put some pressure on the sides of my opponent's unit. So I know that she's not gonna just charge in somewhere and kill an entire unit. But it does allow me to get one more Dread Knight in front of my unit, and it also does allow me to get the charge in the flank, so it's more combat res. And in addition, she still has 4 attacks at strength 4 with Death Trance, so she might still be able to inflict some damage as well. So I am thinking whether I maybe should have just turned her around to face the necropolis guard on the top. And again, I just charged it in the flank with my legionnaires. I had expected to do quite some damage there. Yeah, so as expected, I am losing the top right flank, but I am grinding down these necropolis guard quite nicely. My opponent's gonna strike against my Pegasus, and he inflicts 2 wounds on him. So 1 wound with the riders and 1 wound with the horses. Meanwhile, I do only 2 wounds to his chariots. So that was a bit of a bummer. I had hoped to kill at least 1 entire chariot and receive at maximum 1 wound back. So in this case, I believe it was something like a draw. Or he lost by -1 or so, and he had a BSB nearby. So I was expecting to just win by 4 or so, pop another chariot next turn, kill another chariot, and just leave the combat with 1 wound on my guy, and then thereafter being able to charge into something else. But then again, dice are dice. Oh. So the Corsairs are still happily grinding away at the Necropolis Guard without the character. So I think that the character is quite essential to these units, just to also give them stubborn. And the 175 points that a Tomb Harbinger is really cranks up the performance of the unit to another level. So yeah, as I mentioned, dice are dice. With the BSB it's going bad, with the Corsairs it's going quite well. But in the end, yeah, this is Dread Elves versus Undead. So the undead are basically built to grind, the dread elves are basically built to just charge into something and try to go through. And if you're in a grindy combat, then yeah, with Cossairs, in the end, there's probably going to be one or two of these necropolis guards still standing. So I am sacrificing 270 points to get half the points of a unit of my opponent, which is 180. So with a unit of 10 guys, that is, yeah, it is what you can expect, obviously, because the other unit is still more expensive than mine. But yeah, I'm not saying that they should be able to fully grind down a unit of necropolis guard. Yeah, the BSB dies because another horse kicked him in the face and didn't like it. And we chop away at necropolis guard, and the necropolis guard, they are not really happy by that, but they do kill 3 more corsairs. So this basically marks the end of the unit of corsairs. There are still 9 necropolis guard left. So realistically, I'm not going to grind down this unit anymore to below 25%, so I don't get any points there. So we have the charge of my opponent's skeleton chariots into my Medusa. So he is able to kill the Medusa. I'm able to kill some necropolis guard of his. So I still do get my flank bonus because I'm still in contact with the unit that I'm fighting. He doesn't get this bonus, but he loses like 1 guy, and then he can overrun into my Dread Legionnaires. I reform so that I can fit in my cauldron, because I was only contacting 2 models, and then at the end I was still contacting the same models. My cauldron can join the fight, so this is quite important because now on the bottom left corner, I can put both of the knights into his deployment zone. I'm gonna kill his necropolis guard with my cauldron. The wizard's just gonna hide. But this means that I do have the secondary objective, as long as I'm able to kill the necropolis guard. And to be honest, when I was looking at this, I was like, yeah, maybe I'll be able to even grind down the chariots like this, because they only get some impact hits on the legionnaires. I can still buff them up with some armor. Okay, maybe I can't. But I do get reroll to wounds against the necropolis guard. So that's basically 9 wounds from me. Because the impact hits of the cauldron, the witch elves on top, the avatar, together they should be able to do at least 6 wounds or so. The Dread Legionnaires, if they focus on the necropolis guard, they might still do a wound or 2. So indeed, I do 7 or 8 wounds. Then my opponent, he has the 2d3 impact hits, and then the chariot crew, they should hit on 4+. So I was expecting him to do a little bit less wounds than me, actually. So if he had left the banner, and then we both had a charge, we both had a banner, so then I would have crumbled down his necropolis guard, and his chariots would have taken 1 or 2 wounds, and I would still have had a spearman there, which would protect my my cauldron from being charged by the skeleton chariots, just because they would still be in combat. Unfortunately, he was able to kill my legionnaires, so he does get a charge into my my cauldron. So that's a bit sad, because the cauldron is only on 1 wound, and it's gonna be tough for my opponent to do wounds on it, because even with the impact hits, he still has 5 to wounds, so he's gonna do like 2 wounds or so. I should make 1 Aegis save there. So then the crew still hits on 4+, wounds on 5+, that's another 2 wounds. So I should get something like 2 wounds, maybe 3. if things go bad in the combat. But then again, the less dice you roll, the more influential each of the rolls become. So I do strike back. I do kill the necropolis guard because that was the important one. And then he kills my altar. So yeah. In terms of points, my opponent made way more points than I did, but I have the secondary objective, so it's only a 9-11 instead of something worse. It was a good game. It was a good learning lesson to make me realize that I do need this Banner of Blood. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a bit of a different one because not a lot really happened. But I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.